I'd like to call the June 6th morning session of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners into session, and welcome everyone who is here today to speak to us, and also welcome those who are watching it on YouTube. So, as customary, we will open with a prayer. Today it will be led by Commissioner Fred Smith, and we have the pledge be led today by American Legion Post 132 of Smithfield. So if we would please rise.
Today, 78 years ago, was D-Day. We had soldiers trying to cross the channel. The first wave, 90% died. I think it's important that we remember that, those men who fought for our freedom. And also 78 years ago, President Franklin D. Roosevelt offered a prayer that united our nation together. We need to do that today. So in that spirit, I would ask that you bow as I read President Roosevelt's prayer. He started out saying, my fellow Americans, last night, when I spoke to you about the fall of Rome, I knew at that moment that troops of the United States and our allies were crossing the channel in another and great operation. It has come to pass with success thus far. And so in this poignant hour, I ask you to join me in prayer. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard, for the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces. Success will not come with rushing speed, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph. They will be sore tired by night and by day, without rest until the victory is won. The darkness will be rent by noise and flame. Men's souls will be shaken with the violence of war. For these men are lately drawn from the way of peace. They fight not for the lust of conquest. They fight to end conquest. They fight to liberate. They fight to let justice arise and tolerance and goodwill among all thy people. They yearn but for the end of battle, for their return to their haven of home. Some will never return. Embrace these, Father, and receive them, their heroic servants, into thy kingdom. For us at home, fathers, mothers, children, wives, sisters, and brothers, of brave men overseas, whose thoughts and prayers are ever with them, help us, Almighty God, to rededicate ourselves in renewal faith in Thee in this hour of great sacrifice. Many people have urged that I call the nation into a single day of special prayer, but because the road is long and the desire is great, I ask that our people devote themselves in a continuance of prayer as we rise in each new day. And again, when each day is spent, let words of prayer be on our lips, invoking thy help to our effort. Give us strength too. Strengthen our daily tasks to redouble the contributions we make in the physical and the material support of our armed forces. And let our hearts be stout to wait out the long travail, to bear sorrows that may come, to impart our courage unto our sons wherever they may be. And, O Lord, give us faith. Give us faith in Thee, faith in our sons, faith in each other, faith in our united crusade. Let not the keenness of our spirit ever be dulled. Let none of the impacts of temporary events, of temporal matters of but fleeting moments, let not these deter us in our unconquerable purpose. With thy blessings we shall prevail over the unholy forces of our enemy. Help us to conquer the apostles of greed and racial arrogance. Lead us to the saving of our country and with our sister nations into a world united that will spell a sure peace, a peace invulnerable to the schemes of unworthy men, and a peace that will let all of men live in freedom, reaping the just rewards of their honest toil. Thy will be done, Almighty God. Amen.
Amen.
I
Allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, the first item up is approval of the agenda. Any discussion of the agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve?
move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have consent agenda items, which consist of approval of our May 2nd meeting, both sessions, as well as our May 16th Finance Corporation minutes, some additions to the DOT street system, approval of our audit contract for the year ending 2022. We have public utilities agreement renewal with the Clean Water Education Partnership, several budget revisions, and several appointments, and also our tax releases and refunds. So with that, any items that need to be considered off of this consent agenda? If not, I hear a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, we have public comment. And I would say this is time for any member of the audience that wishes to address the board on an item not already on the agenda to come forward. And you have 3 minutes to share your information with us. If you would, please state your name and a general location from where you're from. And just remember that public comment is a listening opportunity for the board to hear the thoughts and concerns of the public, and it's not intended for the board to respond or answer any questions. And also, my final thing is to make sure that this remains civil at all times. So, Dr. Cohen, good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, members of the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Walter, Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of this distinguished board. My name is Geddes Cohen Jr., and I live here in Smithfield, and I'm a concerned citizen. I rise to speak today about the fiscal year budget that is proposed by the Board of Election for Johnston County. I received a copy of that budget submitted to you, and it is public information. I encourage a positive consideration of the budget coming from you. I believe the budget is adequate and fair. I justify the need for your vote in approval. I believe this will enhance the voting experience of the citizens of Johnston County. I base my
justification on 3 facts. Johnston County is the fastest growing county in North Carolina, and it ranks number 9 when you consider population. It also ranks number 10 when you look at geographic areas. Most of it is agricultural and rural. Johnston County deserves better. The approval of the budget would render a better accessibility to the voting sites. And it should include eastern eastern Johnston County and northern Johnston County, and areas in Johnston County that serves voters that are in the low income and low wealth categories. It would also, by your voting yes to this budget, would make conditions for better staff. And I'm talking about salary. And it would increase the number of hours that voters will have access to the voting in early voting as well as the general election. Don't forget that the voting should be fair to our voters, and they should feel comfortable when they go to our voting areas. We need to consider the location of our voting sites. I think we need to move them in areas where all people feel safe and welcome to come to your sites. Should be in some schools and churches that are in low income and low wealth communities. Your vote in the affirmative would move Johnston County more fair and more welcoming to the citizens. It would make a voting experience less challenging to the voters. Consider transportation as a hindrance to get into the voting sites. A voting site that is more than 5 miles from the residence of the citizens is a challenge. I thank you for my opportunity to stand before you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak? And remember, this is for items not already on the agenda. And try to keep it to about 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Phil Lanier. I serve as the Airport Director for Johnston Regional Airport. I'm joined today by our Chairman, Ken Starling, and Vice Chairman, John Bullock. I also want to speak in support of the budget that's being pushed forward today. The airport.
So, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
So, are you here to speak about the budget, which I think the public hearing for that is up next. So, if there's others here who are not here to speak about the budget.
Yes, sir. I can do that. Let's do that.
Then we'll get
yes, sir.
Yeah, pass that microphone.
I'm just
around.
excited about all the growth in Johnston County. I can't help it. Okay.
Yeah, just
Lay it down right there.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that, but I just want to make sure that, is there anybody here to speak to anything other than the budget and public comments? All right, well, I think that shortened that public comment section down. So I did have a one email to read, well, not to read, but to just recognize. We did have an email. It's also on the budget, but it was from Shannon Peterson, and it reflects his concerns over the budget and some of the items in the budget and some of the reasons he sees as for causes of his concerns. So I just want to recognize Mr. Peterson's email. So, Madam Clerk, is there any other emails? All right. So. Next up, we do have the public hearing on our fiscal year 2022-23 Johnston County proposed budget. I will now open the public hearing and call on County Manager Rick Hester to comment and request the budget message to be entered into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
All right.
board members. Yes, I would ask that budget message be entered into the record. And here today are several folks here. Some of these are new requests, and some those are requests that you've seen in the past. So I'll be glad to fill in any information along the way. If you have any questions for me, I'm available, and thank you.
All right. So we do have, and I don't know how this order was determined, but we do have an order here that I would like to follow, and if there's others who aren't on this list, we'll accommodate you towards the end. But we have Johnston County Youth Council. Is there a representative of the Johnston County Youth Council here? All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My name is Taylor Kirks, and I'm here today as a representative of the Johnston County Youth Advisory Council. I'm also Vice President at JCI and have been working in workforce development for youth, young adults, and students with disabilities here in Johnston County since 2008. I'm joined in the audience, well, in the hallway, by the chair of the Advisory Council,
Yeah, they came in with you.
Ms. Deborah Bolin, and she is also a member of the Capital Area Workforce Board. The Johnston County Youth Advisory Council was formed by Capital Area Workforce Board in 2020. This council includes members of Johnston County Public Schools, Johnston Community College, Alliance Health, Juvenile Justice, Voc Rehab, Social Services, Partnership for Children, Johnston County Industries, Johnston Youth Services, and the NC Works Next Gen Career Center. The mission of this council is to promote a continuum of services for our youth and young adults by supporting comprehensive and integrated models of educational, developmental, and employment-related services. This continuum of services is intended to reduce the number of youth that are in our county and disconnected between the ages of 16 and 24. Those youth are the primary recipients of NC Works Next Gen services, and that number remains stubbornly high in our area. And it ultimately impacts the availability of local talent available to Johnston County business and industry. Currently, that number sits at approximately 3,000 youth and young adults in Johnston County. The council set out to support the creation of education to career systems and programs that enable every young person in Johnston County to earn the highest educational achievement they can, to engage in work experiences, paid and unpaid, and to complete a post-secondary credential, ultimately securing living wage work. So as mentioned above, the work of this council began in earnest in 2020. The council decided to focus its attention locally in areas of higher need as indicated by labor market and other data. The council recognized that youth in the Selma area could benefit from supports to stay in school and learn about career opportunities that lead to family-sustaining wages. The council designated JOCO Connectors to provide these opportunities. JOCO Connectors is a mentoring and work readiness program that lays the groundwork for career education and training. Because the impacted youth live in lower resource communities, they may not have people in their lives that can provide guidance on high-growth careers and how to plan for college. Likewise, they may not have personal connections to internships or work experiences that can increase career awareness and build a professional network. JOCO Connectors seeks to provide this education and this professional network. To provide this preparation, high school seniors that participate in JOCO Connectors will receive soft skill and workplace readiness instruction, leadership development instruction, and career exploration opportunities, all while they receive the support of dedicated mentors that will guide them along in that process. We began a pilot program this past spring at Triple S High School in anticipation and trying to get all of the kinks worked out in preparation for a full launch in this upcoming year. We are grateful to the leadership of Dr. Allen, who I believe is here, who gave, there you go. We're so grateful for Dr. Allen to provide the students and the space and the resources necessary to get that pilot project off the ground. We're also very thankful for the support of Johnston County Schools and their Career and Technical Education Department, who made it possible to launch that pilot program. The students who participated in this pilot provided positive feedback, reporting they felt more confident in their ability to communicate effectively in a workplace setting. These students also reported having gained skills in resume building and interview preparedness. Students noted they gained more awareness around their social media presence and how it can affect their future job search and job opportunities. When asked what their biggest takeaway from, most students expressed that they learned a lot about workplace communication, especially the difference between workplace communication and in-school communication. So we are really hopeful to set out and launch a full mentoring program next year. The topics that we are planning on providing to students include personal and professional brand, critical thinking and decision-making, communication skills and business ethics, interviewing skills, mock interviews, personal finance, and planning for post-secondary training and education. All the while, when these students are receiving that instruction, they will have a mentor alongside them that in between group sessions, that mentor will help them develop an interest inventory or finish an interest inventory, review those items, review and create a resume, create their LinkedIn profile, interview preparation and etiquette again, and then also to develop a career plan. What is their plan for following high school? We originally set out to work with seniors in high school, rising seniors, especially those that are right on the edge and don't have a solid transition plan for when they graduate. And we do want to continue working with that population of students. So in closing, JOCO Connectors has the potential to build the bridge for Johnston County youth to life-changing education and careers. Participants will gain confidence by learning the tools to meet employer expectations, assess career opportunities and income, develop their own personal brand, create a career plan with the encouragement and coaching of a mentor. But we do need investments to support and build and expand the program. Investment from Johnston County would allow training for mentors, hire a dedicated coordinator for the mentoring program, make curriculum enhancements. We are already using Junior Achievements curriculum, which has been very good, but we want to add to that. Food and travel, because food always is a draw for the young people. And as well, again, like I mentioned, a coordinator to manage the mentors, work with our local industry and business, and find individuals who are willing to work with these young people in development of those career plans. So at this time, we're looking for an investment. We're looking for an initial investment of $20,000 to get us off the ground and get us started so that in the future it will become sustainable through private foundations, through grants, et cetera. But we would like to go ahead and have a firm start in the first year so that we can be in a better position to achieve those outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
This is, Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing. Do we ask questions at this point?
I think so. I think that's appropriate.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This sounds great, but it also sounds like the reading the curriculum of a high school class. Is that redundant?
I think it changes the conversation a bit, especially when you have the outside mentors, because as an educator, I've taught before, you're not able to share the realities on the ground in the workplace. Having the mentors coming from outside the school setting and coming in and providing that one-on-one direct support through email, through phone, not just in the school, so that they can have that opportunity to communicate in a different way and to learn about what the world of work is like out from somebody that is living it. Right.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir.
The Boys and Girls Club that's located in Selma, is this a duplication of services or?
My Kids Club, they serve the younger individuals, so 8th grade
So
and
you're
below.
talking about older?
Yes, sir. We're talking about high school, very late stage high school students, the ones that are almost ready to make that transition, but just may need that additional support to make a successful transition
Okay.
from high school.
Understand.
If I could just note, like with the NC Works Next Gen Center, we serve those youth that are disconnected already, not in school, not working 16 to 24. So this would be a preventative measure, trying to get them connected with college, career, et cetera, so that they don't end up in those circumstances.
Thank you.
Yep.
I will say programs like this can be very important because a lot of times I find that there's an unrealistic expectation of what the workplace is going to provide,
Yeah.
Including how to dress for an interview, how to show up on time, how to turn in a notice if you're not going to work there anymore. All those things are missing.
Yes.
And they're a problem. And so if you're planning to address all those things, then I certainly commend you.
Yep. The soft skills deficiencies that we see in our daily work are significant. So anything that we can do as a collaborative in the county to address those, I think we're all better for it, our business industry alike.
Is the youth council presently staffed by volunteers?
They are. It's operated through Capital Area Workforce Board, but it is staffed by all volunteers with all the youth serving agencies and schools in the county.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Triangle Land Conservancy. Good morning, Leanne. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Leanne Hammerbacher with Triangle Land Conservancy. Last spoke to y'all in March, I believe. We have one new member since then, but thanks for having me back. As I mentioned in March, we have several budget requests for this upcoming fiscal year. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of those requests and take any questions related to those. So those of you not familiar with Triangle Land Conservancy, we are a 501c3 nonprofit land trust that serves the 6-county Triangle area. Our mission is to protect open space for 4 key public benefits. That includes farmland, wildlife, water quality, and places for people to connect with nature. Next slide. We've been around for almost 40 years, and during that tenure in Johnston County alone, we have protected close to 5,000 acres of land. You can see on that previous map, we have 2 main priority areas in the county, including the low grounds in the Marks Creek area, but work along all the riparian corridors and across the county to protect working lands. Next slide. We think this is critical work. Given the rate of growth in the county, it's really important to protect and conserve our highest value natural resources and working lands while we still can. A survey that was conducted in April as part of the Recreational Master Plan looked at parks facilities and ranked nature trails, greenways, and nature parks as the highest priority. In fact, over 50% of the 660 respondents indicated that those were the highest facilities they wanted to see in the county. So supporting our work will lay the groundwork and foundation for the county to have those facilities and amenities in the future. Also note that the 3rd highest ranked amenity was game lands, and TLC also supports land acquisition for Wildlife Resources Commission and other hunting lands. If you'll go to the next slide. In fact, with our Williamson Preserve, which the commissioners supported over 10 years ago, we have 16 miles of trail on the ground. The commissioners supported both the acquisition of this preserve as well as the development of the trail system. This last year, we had a great year in the county. We protected over 1,800 acres of land along the Little River and in the low grounds, and that land was valued at over $8 million. We were able to do all this land protection without direct support from the county, but also had some funding resources from the state and federal level that we won't be able to tap into this year. I'll note this land is valued at a lot of value, but we've also seen in study after study that developments or residential and commercial development adjacent to open space also receives an increase in value. So I think from a tax revenue standpoint, this is a wise investment for the county as well. So what are our needs? We are requesting $625,000 from the county. That would go to 6 projects that would protect at least 600 acres. 2 of these projects are projects that we have submitted to state grants, both the Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund and the North Carolina Land and Water Trust Fund. Securing a commitment from the county to support these projects will help increase our scores in those state rankings and help us leverage additional funds. We will match all of the county funding at least a 1-to-1 ratio on those grants. In addition to that, we have interest from 5 different landowners who would like to donate either what's known as a conservation easement or fee simple property to Triangle Land Conservancy. But these projects, it's an incredible donation from the landowner, but we have costs associated with them, such as surveys and legal costs. And so we would like to ask the county to support at least 5 of those projects. And then finally, we are undertaking a GIS model and suitability analysis for the county that is looking at how can we rank those working lands and natural areas to best direct our funding and outreach to projects across the county. So those are our funding needs for the next year. We estimate that with the county's investment, we can, again, protect over 600 acres at less than $1,000 an acre by the county. Go on to the next slide. I just wanted to highlight one example project that we are working on. This is one of the projects I mentioned. We have an application in to the North Carolina Farmland Preservation Fund. It's a 100-acre farm that sits on the Little River. It has about 1,800 feet of frontage along the Little River itself. It's a historic farm that's been farmed by 3 generations now. It both has working forest as well as active production farmland, as well as wildlife and riparian corridors. Again, funding from the county would help us secure state funding and match. Go to the next one. So this is, again, a summary of our request. I know it's a little hard to read, but again, those purchased properties that would, again, be matched by state and federal funds, as well as funds to cover donations to properties and the associated transaction costs with those. And then, again, the assessment and outreach. TLC only works with willing landowners. All of our acquisitions of both easements and property are voluntary. Having a strategy in place will really help us secure those outside funding resources to make those projects possible. So that is it, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Leanne, could those, how do I say it? Could our funds be contingency funds? In other words, pledged for the sake of the grant application, but contingent upon you getting the grant? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you pledge and commit the funds, then that will also increase the scores for the grant.
Okay. Great.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would say one thing in support of this aspect. I think in the past, I know I haven't been really strong supporting this type of thing, but as we have evolved towards with Adrian and our commitment towards this kind of passive recreation that we haven't had a lot of in years past, in decades past, this is a way to leverage that and leverage other funds to accomplish that. Even though we're not setting up a park with TLC's help, it can be that for our citizens. I'll just throw that out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think TLC's been a great partner and asset to Johnston County. I know from our recent land use plan surveys that we've done that preservation of open space has been a big concern and at the top of the feedback we've been getting. So I think this enables us to do that at a relatively inexpensive cost when you look at the total picture. So again, thanks for what you're doing for Johnston County and helping us meet our goals of expanding our recreational opportunities and preservation of natural space and open space. So thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, next up we have the town of Princeton. Mayor Raines, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us today in April. Congratulations on being on the board. With us today is Michael King, our new town administrator, who will be helping with the visuals. Michael Rose, our Mayor Pro Tem, will be helping with our presentation, and Hope Doherty, Chairman of the Library Committee, that will be helping with the presentation as well. And Vicki Raines, my wife, is joining me today. We've had a vision of updating our community building for several years, and this is our current community building. Built about 1980, replaced a building that burned very many years ago, and it is now just out of date. It is antiquated, and you'll see this is the, if you'll go back to the, is it out of order. There. This is the picture of the current building. It's on Center Street, right is the gateway to downtown. Next slide is a picture of the interior of the building, which one room will hold about 50 people. The second room will hold about 50 people. It's just outdated. The kitchen is outdated, and we have a new vision for the building. And I'll ask Mike Rose to go over that vision.
When this project originally began, we were looking at a renovation, and after we came back with some estimates of what the renovation was going to cost, it was then thought of maybe a complete tear down and rebuild was maybe a better idea. If you'll advance to the next slide, working with Dunn and Dalton Architects, we have come up with some renderings of what a town would feel like could be benefited by, and one reason I wanted to say why we're here today is as we understand your gentleman and lady's plan is to look after the entire county, and the reason we feel like this would that we're asking you for some assistance is, although this is a much larger project than what we're asking for, we just need some help. We do have some funding sources already in place, and we just need a little bit more help. We do feel like this is has a regional draw, that a lot of people from outside the town limits use the facility. Now it's used as a rental facility for events, and Princeton's city limits is only about a square mile, so we service a much larger area that works outside into the county area, and so that's why we really appreciate some help. But as you see the pictures there, what we're hoping to do is to build this building just behind where the current building sits, so that the current building could be used until this one is completed. The town has got an option to purchase the property that is behind the community building where it is now, so it would go from Center Street all the way back to Pearl Street. And as you can see from, let's see, can we get this one right here. So if you look to the left, we'll see that's Center Street, and the where you see the Arboretum is about where the current building is now. So the new building will be built behind, and then back where you see the playground, the lower playground, there's a current house there that will be moved, and then the upper playground area, there is a current structure there that has been vacant for a long time. So part of the idea of why this location is important is we are trying to improve downtown Princeton, and there really is not a lot of places to put the community building, but this does act as a nice gateway, and it's and of course the school is just above outside this picture here, and this would be a great place to transition from the school to the downtown area, and would also house the library that is now has kind of grown beyond its capacity at the school. And so part of this plan here, you'll see a library as part of this plan. So Ms. Hope Doherty is here. Would like for her to speak on behalf of the library.
Good morning, and thank you for having us and listening to us. Yes, I am Hope Doherty, and I'm with the library, and I have been since about 2005. And in that time, we have been serving our community out of about not quite 500 square feet in the high school. So we were grateful to the high school and also the Johnston County Board of Education for letting us be there. But we have outgrown the space. We have many pros for being in that space, but a few of the cons are that we cannot get into the library until after the school is out. And Princeton is a really viable little town with retail shops open from 8 o'clock until 6 p.m. And when people come in there to do their business, they can't do they can't visit the library until after 4 o'clock when the school closes, and then we're able to go in. So we're looking forward to a new place to call our own. The square footage, I think, will more than double the space, so that we will be able to serve our patrons in more than we are right now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the new building will have meeting capacities. One room will be 120 people, plus additional room of 50 people. And there will be a hoarding wall that will open it up to a capacity of 170. It will have amphitheater outdoors, as you saw in the vision, a library, kitchen, covered porch, covered pavilion for outdoor entertainment. Could be used as a various purposes for a wedding venue or for a farmer's market, multiple uses for the outdoor section. Public restrooms, staff office, a large lobby, and we also are working with Veterans Affairs to use part of the facility and grounds for veterans use. So the library will be 21% of the building. VA conference room would be 3%. Office space would be 3%. We also have a business incubator center, which would be 200 square feet. A conference room, the lobby, and the meeting rooms comprise 39% of the building. The total square footage is 6,325 square feet. A big focus is the library. There are many citizens in the Princeton area, particularly school age, that does not have internet at home. They cannot study at home. And the library will be a resource for those individuals after school to come and study and utilize the building. The location being directly half a block from the school. School kids can walk from the school to the library, and also if we have events, the school parking lot as well as the downtown area could be additional space for parking. Downtown is enjoying a renaissance. 90% of our buildings are occupied, and we feel like this building will enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Princeton. And when I mention Princeton, this building and the current building is used by people in Time Level, Kenley, the Brogdon area, sections of Wayne County. We contract with Selma and other communities for people to use the facility. So our current budget for the entire building is around $2 million. We received $500,000 from the General Assembly, which we're very thankful for. Hanson and other private donations of $108,000. And we're requesting $250,000 from Johnston County. And we will be obtaining other local resources and asking USDA to rural development for the remainder of over $1 million. So we have just got our renderings. We are ready to go towards construction once we get commitment of all the funds. So we want to thank you for our request of $250,000, and if you've got questions, we were certainly will try to answer it. There is in your package just a one-page summary of all the issues that we have presented.
Any questions for Mayor Raines?
I have a brief one.
You got one?
Just real quick. People would rent this facility, is that right, like parties, things like that?
Yes.
Would there be any distinction between in town and out of town?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's available for a sign-up sheet, and we'll have a schedule for renting. We will maintain the building. We'll have housekeeping to make sure the building is kept up and clean, used by any citizen in Johnston County.
Mayor, I got a couple of questions for you, sir. How is the community building and center, by the way, many of barbecue dinners and chickens in that place down there, that old place. But how is it administrated? Is it through the town? Do you folks manage it, or what?
We manage it. We took over ownership about 8 years ago. It was owned by a group that was part of the Lions Club, and we took over ownership of the building about 8 years ago. And at that point, we were looking to renovate the building, but through a lot of discussion, the building was not adequate, and renovating a Quonset hut was not a good choice of public funds.
What is the cost typically for rent now or versus what it will be?
The room for 50 people is generally around $200, and the rent will be very modest compared to renting a barn or some larger facility, but the rent will be reasonable for the public to enjoy the facility.
Thank you, Mayor. One final question. The money that you have received in the past for rental, is there any money in that bucket of funds or not?
That has been going to the town treasury or fund balance, and that would be a very small part of it because, as you can see, that facility is, for rental purposes, has been very limited, and the last couple of years with COVID-19, the resources to rent it, we've not been able to rent it until the last 6 months.
So you keep it separate, but it goes in the general fund?
It goes in the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I did have a couple of questions, Mayor Raines. One is future maintenance. I know we have some community buildings now that we are responsible for, but what is the plan for this facility?
Our Public Works Department maintains the building. As we grow into this facility, there could be a dedicated staff person that looks after the premises there based on revenue and based on rental. But when you have a new building, we certainly want to keep it new, and it would be a focal point of our town. So as a gateway to downtown, we certainly want the building to be a part of our enhancement of our community. So, yes.
Is that the town, you're looking at the town being responsible for the future
town would be
maintenance?
totally responsible for it, and library being there, it will be very well maintained.
And I did notice in some of the, at least the revenue, there was a $500,000 grant. Has that been awarded?
Yeah, the money is in our account. Representative John Bell, which represents the Princeton area, was able to get that funded last year through the General Assembly. And from there, we've got the renderings of the new building. We move forward, and we will be, in the next 2 to 3 months, getting the rest of the money put together to go out to bid to get the construction going. And as Mike mentioned, one of the great things about the plan we have now is we can still utilize the old building until this building is finished.
And I guess my last is more of a comment, is to say maybe to reach out to Mr. O'Neill and look at opportunities for some of our fee in lieu, recreation fee in lieu for maybe the land acquisition or playground outside stuff. I think it may be eligible for that, but I would encourage to have that discussion as well. So.
Yep. We're going to go to all avenues to fund it because the less we borrow, the more profitable the building will be.
Any other questions?
I have one. When we talked the other day, I went and rode through there and looked. Is there a plan, a scheme to put maybe a buffer between the metal shed and the 2 homes that are there on the railroad side of that?
Yes, that would be our conceptual view, is to make sure that our property is buffered. But the hope, once this building is built, that the adjacent properties will be improved because the vision of all of downtown would be improved with this building finished.
One of them is a rental structure. Is there a chance of making that part of the project?
There's potential, but that's probably a future potential.
These people that you're going to demolish or move their homes and demolish the building, you've already got them on board.
We have a offer to purchase, and we've got a time constraint on it. So, but that's agreed upon and recorded in the courthouse.
And one final question. I noticed the Beaver Dam ditch is right on that one property line. Will there be some way to protect kids, whatever, from, I mean, I notice it's kind of deep in that area right there. So I'm just wondering, is there a plan for shrubs or whatever to?
I think that would be pretty much a wise part, because that area will be a conservation area. In fact, part of the vision there is to have a arboretum, and that might be part of the arboretum area, is the area that is lower and not be utilized as part of the building.
Anything
I
else?
got one. I apologize, Mayor. So the debt service on the debt will be administrative out of the general fund of the town of Princeton.
That is correct. And we want to limit that part of the aspect. But USDA Rural Development did fund it when we were looking at renovating the other buildings. I don't think there would be a problem requesting funds from them and it being approved.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mayor Raines.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would say congratulations to Mr. King on his new job he has there. So I see you have sign spinner in your future too, just in case you need it. All right. Next up, we should have Dennis Lewandowski representing the reentry.
My name is Dennis Lewandowski, and I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist for 45 years, which is a long time. Worked in the the old Department of Correction for over 35 years, and have also conducted psychological evaluations within the court system. And I am a late substitute, so any specifics I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer. But what I can tell you about the program is that it started probably in the 90s as a sentencing service program where we were doing evaluations of low-level felons to see if we could divert them from prison and perhaps focus more on rehabilitation. The state, unfortunately, decided that that was too costly a program and decided to kind of phase it out, which they did. The reentry program, saw needs within the system and began providing for those folks, so they developed into a batterers domestic violence program for at-risk children, those with alcohol, drug problems, etc. I have remained involved with this program from its inception, and that is something that I would not do if I did not see unique aspects to the program. And what's unique about this program is we take a granular therapeutic approach to education. We don't provide therapy, but in providing the services that we do provide, they're going to be in a therapeutic fashion. Now, everybody is going to basically say, yes, we treat folks with respect, etc. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, how we're trained and over many, many years of experience, how you relate to folks. If I talk to an individual and I say, what do you think about your mother? I'm going to get an entirely different response than if I say, what do you think about mom? And it's that kind of granular, very subtle aspects, that we're looking at in this program. My involvement has been, assistance in training, of assistance in, how to approach these problems at a very, very different level. It's not therapy, but it's a therapeutic approach to everything that we do. And this program has been supportive of that. And that's basically what they want. And so, again, we have treated folks that are not particularly sympathetic individuals, but can have a very, very big impact on their families, on the community, etc. Most folks don't feel sympathetic to domestic violence perpetrators. But if they continue to perpetrate violence, that's counterproductive. So the question is, how do we get them to look at themselves and change? Most of these folks, they come in and they're going to deny that they did anything wrong. How do we get them to take a look at themselves, and begin to think in terms of changes? And reentry provides the only domestic violence program, and it is state certified, and it is a big need in the community. And again, in getting folks to look at themselves and to begin to change, that's important. In addition, we take a look at-risk children, kids who are having difficulties. And again, it's not a matter of what we tell them, it's what they can hear. How do we get them to hear things that we need for them to do? And we, again, focus very specifically on that. We have a staff meeting once a month. And during that staff meeting, we go over almost all the cases. Some are doing fine, we don't need to. But we take a look at it and we say, okay, this is how this person is behaving. What strategies, how are we presenting this? And sometimes we use audio tapes, which I did for when I taught at the university. How do you phrase that? How do you deal with that? So I think it's a very, very unique program, that is a nonprofit and has not received a, tremendous amount of financial support. And right now, they're in dire financial straits. I mean, and to show the commitment, most folks now have not been paid in a good period of time, and there's no guarantees that they will be, but they're basically saying, we've got a commitment to this program. This program is really important to us. And I think it's important to the community. Again, my involvement is not nearly as deep as the folks that are running the program, but I have a commitment to it as well, because again, I've worked in the Department of Correction, and it is awfully easy for folks to get jaded. When you work with these folks and they lie to you and they don't admit it, and it's easy to say, rather than saying, okay, how do I get them to hear and start looking at themselves? They've been lectured to by better people at lecturing than me. The judge's done a better job, their mother's done a better job. Lots of folks have done a better job in doing that. And so it's not a matter of, me lecturing to them again, but it's a matter of, how do we get them to hear, well, what will cause them to begin to change. And we have seen changes, and that's encouraging and gratifying. And I think that's why these folks are willing to work. So what I really want to do is encourage you to financially support them, and if you choose to to financially support them as soon as you can, because folks are waiting to be paid, and, you know, they've not been paid for a while.
Any questions for Mr. Lewandowski?
One brief question.
Yes,
Do you-
sir.
Do you have any idea why the state chose to not to fund this program any longer?
Well, you know, the state funded the sentencing services program. You know, when it went, there was just, you know, they again just never bothered. I don't know why that was, you know, but they have got a thing for certifying the domestic violence batterers, but they've not allocated any money for it, you know, none at all. So if that program goes away, you know, it's gone, you know, because the state does not provide any funds for it. And again, I think it's a vital program, not a sympathetic group. You know, if you're there the first time they walk in, whoa, you know, you say, do I want to be here? But, you know, over the experience and kind of saying, okay, how do we get them to hear, you know, what will be beneficial for them to change, you know? And we've seen changes. And again, the state has developed the program, but not funded it at all.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to ask a quick question, and you may not since you're the substitute. But do you know how many people you have served over this past year?
I really don't.
Okay.
You know.
I didn't suspect you did, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
How about how many is on staff? How many is on staff right now?
You know, we have mostly part-time folks, you know, facilitators, and I'm not sure, you know, we have maybe 4 of those, you know, and Dot Ehlers is full-time, and Willie Keel.
Do you know the amount of your funding request that you're asking for?
I
already have that information.
Okay.
Good.
It's on the notes here, 50,000.
Okay.
Judge Rawls knows more than I do, for sure.
If I may,
Sure.
George. Ms. Ellers asked me to come a while back. Good morning to each of you. Even before she was sick and in the hospital, she asked me to come. Of course, you know, my connection and nexus with her is that she is one of our programs with Healthy Choices in our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. The other nexus, I guess, as a retired judge, is that we're aware that this is a court-mandated service. As usual, the services get mandated, but then the buck starts somewhere else. Yeah. And that's what it is. If there's ever a program that I know of that will take $1 and stretch it as far as it can go, Reentry and Ms. Ellers have done it since their inception. They have provided very clear services. They're very innovative in the way they provide those services. And if they're asking for money now, I believe they've shaken every bush. I feel like a preacher at church asking for an offering. And they have done it. In essence, I just found out to her that over the last, that everybody has suffered through this pandemic, period. I don't know how we rebound back from where we have been and then move forward without the resources necessary. But it's my understanding that she's requesting an emergency drop of approximately $50,000. Staff has not been paid. One of her office manager was unexpectedly died. She didn't replace that position. Ms. Ellers is doing most of the groups. He's volunteering. The staff is volunteering. The rent has not been paid. I think they do what they do with the bare resources they do to keep the utilities going. It's just been an unfortunate, on top of that, to have some health issues that does. Recently, they were the benefactor of the Junior League fundraiser, and they actually did that. I had to help solicit for that, too. So I told them, I guess I'm going to call myself a county lobbyist and do what I do. I think she's requesting $100,000 for the next fiscal year, and consideration towards that being recurring. They've been longtime tenants where they are, they're there. They have access to the building. The main issue has come with the resources is that because of COVID, you can't bring a whole lot of people in for the meeting. That then affects their ability to conduct the drug testing because of the number of people. I've talked to her about that, and of course, I said, maybe we need to consider doing 1 week virtual, 1 week in person, and that way you can do it. DSS has been a source of income for them because of the drug testing. They also do Family Pride, which is the parenting program that they wrap around the entire family. We deal with the children in Healthy Choices. We deal with the batterers in the HALT, the domestic violence program. We deal with the families in general in Family Pride. And they've provided those services, not just there. They've been here. They've been in our county. They've been in their location. Ironically enough, when I went to their building a few weeks ago, I saw where Mr. Hester, the late Mr. Hester, had renamed the building after Dot Ehlers there with what they're using it for. And we know as a landlord, he's been very magnanimous to her, has not allowed, generous and not forcing the issue, but she realizes there is an issue. Like I said, she just recently had a fundraiser. The issue is when a judge gets ready to sentence someone, the law says that the judge has to put a batterer in a state-certified program or make findings. Why not? We generally go for the program because no one wants to have it on their watch that we've allowed a batterer to stay out, made an exception from a program that requires them for accountability, and then they go out and commit a worse act than they did at the time they were placed before us. Those are the cases through my career have always scared me. I don't want to be the one to say that I overlooked what was stewing or what was going on and then did not do anything about it. HALT has provided that level of accountability. They're in court. You don't have to doubt it. They're ready, they're able, and prepared to do it. And if Ms. Ehlers have to do it by herself, she's there. So she asked me to come today, and then especially when she noticed me on that. Being as smart as I am, I don't know how to open a Google Doc, and I didn't get myself to open it. And, but that information was provided, but I believe she's spoken to many of you to that cause and to that issue, and it got me out of my bed today to come before you to speak on her behalf, because I believe in Ms. Ehlers and the work that she does in our community.
Do you have any idea how many clients are served in a year by this program?
I have no idea of how many clients are served, but I have an idea that when my last day of court was in the domestic violence court, and I worked there all day that day. They're either going to that program after being sentenced, after being convicted, or they're going there through a diversion contract to hold them accountable for it. She has the same issues. That program is active in Harnett County as well. Those dockets are not like dockets. Those are full dockets. Just this weekend, the news report of a murder that may have involved someone with family relationships. So I can get it later, I guess, or I can ask her to make sure to get that number to you. But I have no doubt that they're working. Of course, I say that, but then we also know that we're dealing with, now we're opening back up. So all of that depends, too, on what we've done over the last 2.5 years. Courts are back wide open. As soon as I get commissioned, I guess I'll be back to work a little bit to try to do the things that we need to do.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Smith.
Adding.
Yes, sir.
You have not lost a step in the past 20 years. You are still as good as you always were. I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out if the state mandates it, how long has it been, this program been in existence?
I was a prosecutor working with the program, and I worked here 30 years. So once the mandate came down, reentry came into town. They've been operating. Even though the state mandates, we all know what they mandate. They give us money for juvenile crime prevention. They said we got to match it. And they mandate a whole lot of stuff. Then they put it back in our corner to do it. And that's the problem. Or, you know, in the Governor Crime Prevention funding, it generally starts as seed money. And they give you a whole lot to start with. And the expectation is that at some point, they either find other funding streams or the county takes over that process. So then you have programs struggling, even though you start them out with $100,000, $150,000, then later on, they're looking at bare bones trying to make it and do what they do. And it just depends on whatever whim. We know where it started because I was there from the beginning. But the problem is, we get people in other places, they don't know the root of where stuff started, and it just seems like it's an easier thing to say no versus yes.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one other question. I'm sorry. Do you know the other funding sources for this program? Do you know where the other funds come in from?
Some of it, I know some of it she gets from the Department of Social Services.
Okay.
Because they provide for the drug testing, and they may pay. So we're all supporting each other, and all of you are supporting each other. Some of it comes through the juvenile crime prevention, the counseling, some of the services that we're doing, but she's one of our lower funded programs. And she's never ceased the amount of services provided. A lot of times, others will come in and ask for more. Ms. Evans has always been very, very low with what she asked for, and they're willing to do the work. I would assume that most of it has come, but apparently a lot of it has deteriorated even now, in Harnett. And that's the thing she wanted me to emphasize, even though their status is nonprofit, these are mandated services. And, in Harnett, they decided last year, no nonprofits. And then, we have nothing to do with that. But then sometimes you just run into that roadblock. The issue is going to become, if you don't provide this service, you're going to have these batterers who are not going to be held accountable. You're going to have these families of these batterers whose parenting skills have been off because they've allowed these type of situations to exist within the home. So then DSS has no level of accountability to send them to these programs because all of them are working trying to prevent this stuff. But then once it's happening, how do we provide the services to the family? So we need it. We need staff, quality people like Dr. Liu, who they're able to come in and work with them with that quality of service. I definitely believe in accountability all the way. And I believe that that's where she finds herself at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then the first shall be last. Mr. Lanier, you want to come back up and give it another shot here?
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. Just wanted to say I appreciate the level of support that's being pushed forward. Appreciate the support in years past. The airport is vital to our community. We're certainly in the business of aviation. We're in demand and at capacity. We've got 4 projects that we're looking forward to this year. One is a future public-private partnership that's getting ready to hit the ground. The second is a fuel farm, which is 25, 30 years old at this point. So we're looking to revamp that. The third is our midfield. I call it the promised land. And then the fourth is what we're looking across the runway, which is a potential industrial development. So we've got all those things on the horizon. We've just received a $7.5 million grant from the state, and we are looking for your continued support and just letting you know that we appreciate the support. Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple. First of all, Phil, do you have any idea what the airport and the airport authority grant-wise have brought into the county in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years? It's been a tremendous amount, I know.
I remember the averages. We were averaging about $130,000 a year. Now we're averaging around $2 million a year. This past year, it was around $4 million. Again, this year we just received a $7.5 million grant. So what was probably $100,000 an average a year is starting to push $2 million a year. And all this funding goes to the development of the airport. It doesn't go to the operations of the airport, the day-to-day, the lights, that sort of thing, cutting grass. This goes to improving the overall footprint and developing the airport for additional use.
I just want to say it's a beautiful facility, and the authority and you and all the folks involved have really done a tremendous job out there.
Thank
it's
you.
a great facility, and the master plans that y'all have are really impressive.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for all your work on it.
Yes, thank you.
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Bill, you're looking for matching funds for any particular grant or just if grants come available?
So we just received a $7.5 million grant. We're looking for, well, I'll call it a $300,000 match, but that funding, some of the funding that we get is 90%, some of it is 100%, and so overall, we've probably got about 10 grants open right now, multiple grants, all supporting different projects. So it's sort of a matrix, if you will, support. Construction costs are going up. It is what it is. So some of these construction numbers that come in, we're ready for that. We've got other grants ready. We don't want to just stop. We want to shorten our critical path, overlap some of our items of work, that sort of thing. But in general, we've got upwards of $10 million in grants right now that we need to spend. Those grants do have a clock on them. We need to get that money out the door and get it to work.
Right.
Awesome. Any other questions? I think you have a couple of your board members.
Yes, sir. I have our chairman, Ken Starling, and our vice chairman, John Bullock.
All right. Well, again, I know y'all have a lot going on. We thank you for the work that you're
Thank you,
doing
sir.
and the board's doing out there. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
And Dr. Cohen, I'll reach back out to you since you came up in public comments, and I thank you for recognizing my subtle sign when I gave that to you. But did you have any other comments you wish to finish with?
Unless you have some questions for me,
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to ask that Dr. Cohen's remarks be transferred from public comment to the public hearing portion? Is that, council, can we do that?
Sure.
Okay. I'm fine with that. So. All right.
As part of the record during the public hearing?
Yes. Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak to the budget?
Yep.
Mr. Davis, come on up.
Life is exciting now, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the new building going up.
Let's see if I can get that to stay. Have some information I want to share with you.
Thank you. I'll take them and we'll pass them down so you can, yeah, just hand them off to me. Okay. Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Godwin, it is an exciting time. Oh, I'm Neil Davis. I'm the director of Johnston County Area Transit System, and it is indeed an exciting time to be in transportation. My wife says I have it bad. Every Sunday after church, I have to go out and look at the new building. I can walk through it undisturbed because the contractors are not there.
Right.
I was there at 7 o'clock this morning, and so anyway, it's an exciting time. The packet that I gave you, I'd like to ask you to flip to the very last page. You'll see a map there. Johnston County Area Transit System, since its inception, has primarily been what you would call a rural demand response paratransit service. And what that means is we operate under contract with various other agencies here in the county to provide transportation services for their clients. We pool those rides together in what we call the North Carolina Coordinated Transportation Model. And by doing so, you have one fleet of vehicles transporting riders from various agencies. And so you get a lot of economies of scale and efficiencies in doing that. In that mix, historically has been a smaller amount of funding provided for what we call general public transportation. And so we use that for people who may not be a part of another service or receiving services such as Medicaid or vocational rehab or any of those kinds of services. And that's a smaller pool of money. As Johnston County has continued to grow and as the Raleigh-Wake urbanized service area boundaries move further eastward through Johnston County, we're obviously at a point in time where we are rethinking how we provide transportation services to anybody and everybody. So it's an exciting time to be a part of that evolution. And here in Johnston County,
We have looked at various ways as to how you would expand public transportation here to the general public ridership. One way that you have seen throughout a lot of the urbanized systems is what we call fixed route service, and that's where they'll have designated bus stops throughout the community, and we'll publish a schedule of pickup times and arrival times at all of these bus stops. And so folks have to kind of plan their travel around the availability of that service. As technology has come forward with new opportunities to change how we do that, communities are now looking at what is known as microtransit service. And that's where you focus your energies and your resources on designated areas that you would call high priority zones that need an increase in availability and resources. Technology makes that work. It's a little bit like an Uber service. If you have a smartphone, you request a ride. In the background, the technology is looking at your ride request and looking at all the available drivers that are around to decide who is most able to come and take care of that request. That technology is now available in public transit systems where we can do similar type management of transportation. So what you end up with is instead of having a dedicated schedule, a rigid schedule, you basically say, tell me when you need to be picked up and where do you want to go, and we'll try to make arrangements to handle that for you. And that's microtransit. It's fairly new in public transportation, and the map on the last page of the handout that I gave you shows you where Johnston County falls into that development. We're working with the Department of Transportation, with the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the Upper Coastal Plains RPO in what we call an evaluation phase as to how JCATS would move from a demand response system to also being a microtransit service provider. Now, there are two ways to do that. If you want to get into the microtransit business, you can contract all of that service out to a third-party firm who would provide the drivers, the vehicles, the technology, and all of that. That's being done in the city of Wilson, not too far from here. Another approach would be what they call software as a service, and that is where you take your existing fleet, and if you have enough capacity, you can use the technology to operate a microtransit program within using the resources that you currently have. And so here at JCATS, we feel like that approach is a good way for us to get started. And really what we want to do is gauge what is the true demand out there. You know, we're highly suspicious that people will be very interested in a microtransit service. We need to know the numbers. And so we believe that we have enough capacity in our fleet right now that we could carve out a small number of vehicles, install the software needed, and operate a pilot program for a few months to see exactly where we are. And that is something that we're doing in concert with DOT as we learn more and more about how the true demand really shapes up. So in the budget proposal that I put forth this year, I added in $175,000 to cover the cost of the software and the operation of a pilot program that we estimate would run for 6 to 8 months that would end as we're moving into the FY24 budget year. And at that point, we have applied for some federal funding that we hope we'll get to help make it sustainable going forward. We don't know whether we'll be awarded that or not, but we do have our application in with the FTA already. So on the front page of the handout is the summary of all of that. A good portion of our budget request to the county is for local match funds that are required for our 5311 and capital and administrative grants. And this board has already approved those in previous meetings where we made those requests. So those are included in our overall summary, which is on page 2. And at the bottom, you'll see the additional $175,000 we're asking to cover the microtransit park. So that's the new area we're looking to try to expand into. So the total budget request would be $371,607. And that's our request, is to add that additional 175 in to bring it up to that total.
Any questions?
I do. I've got some comments. When I was on the board with the JCATS board, Neil, we talked about, it was still a contracted program, but involving groups, cities, different people to try to arrange funds to support ridership for their people, whether it be veterans or members of a club or handicapped people in the towns. This to me is exciting to take advantage of the infrastructure we already have. Number one, you said availability, or if you have room, do you have full rides now? Do you have room on the buses for this type of thing?
To run the pilot we're considering would involve Smithfield-Selma as a zone. Looking at our ride data, an awful lot of the activity we're currently doing and the interest that we have from the demand that we're hearing and learning about falls within, a few mile radius around Smithfield-Selma. Clayton would be another target zone as well. So to do that, we think 6 vehicles focused just into that service, we could take care of it. And right now, we feel like we can provide 6 vehicles.
When I looked on that map, you look at Johnston County and how big it is on that map, and you look at Rocky Mount, both are in the same study phase right now. But I think the idea of clusters or pockets within the county could be viable.
Right.
As opposed, obviously, it can't work in the whole county.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
Good. Sounds like possibilities.
I did have a kind of a follow-up question on that, maybe, and you can explain. I know before you and I have talked about the numbers, and I know we have a program where people could call in and we provide some funds and they can get trips. Could you go over some of those numbers while you were up here and share with some of the other board members? I know I was blown away by the sheer numbers of that people were requesting that we could not service right now.
So the community-funded transportation program that Commissioner Godwin was alluding to was initiated by this body a few years ago. And it currently provides, the standing commitment has been $25,000 a year, and that provides about 5,000 rides. And we are able to track, there's an audit trail capability in our accounting so that we can show the county exactly where those funds are being spent, where those rides are. The request was that it would be divided partly between county residents and city residents in the various communities. So, but altogether, it's about 5,000 rides that 25,000 has provided. The money we're talking about in this particular case here, we're thinking in this Smithfield-Selma zone, we're looking at 50 rides a day. If that becomes the case, we will probably be, with the few vehicles that we're allocating to this, it would be at capacity. So
you think do you foresee the ability to serve being limited by the 6 vehicles that we have? Is that what you think is going to happen?
Well, that's what we want to find out. Yeah.
Well, I guess the other question, I know, how many requests do you have for those that we're serving 5,000? How many requests do you have to turn away?
I don't have the number with me to give you, but it would be in the hundreds easily that we just don't have a funding source for.
Okay.
Dr. Cohen, when he was here earlier talking about supported funding for the Board of Elections, he was talking about low-income, low-wealth areas, and obviously this type of thing would affect those areas as well, not only getting to the doctor, but getting to vote.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, through my involvement with DSS, I know some real-life experiences where people are trying to go to work, and they don't have transportation, and they can't afford to hire a cab at $20 per run. And so they tried the JCATS method, but it was not a consistent, or there was no guarantees that there was going to be a way to get them there. So And these people have walked many times in the rain, whatever, a long distance to get to work, which is a real dedication to provide for their family. But to me, this is a great program. Now, will that remove some of that inconsistency and being able to, if I schedule a ride, is that gonna, can I count on that to be to work on time, or is that not gonna be the case?
That would be a goal of the program for sure, absolutely.
I do believe that as the program progresses and you start to gather more data, I think that, and the people are, become more aware of it, I think that it will grow dramatically, because I think there's a real need for transportation, not only to vote, to go to the physician, but to go to work, to go shopping. I mean, there's a lot of needs out there that people just don't have a way to go somewhere. And so, especially if they've got a job that they've got to be there at a certain time, or or a doctor's appointment or something. So, thank you for working on this. I really appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? I do have one. I know that one of the things that this board has talked about is providing transportation. We're going to hear something a little later for Go Triangle, but I think the board is, we've got to figure out how to get people around in Johnston County for whether it's jobs, schools, government services, or whatever it is, to be able to get them around and hopefully develop that momentum where people are beginning to look at other places outside the county. But I appreciate the work that you and JCATS are doing, trying to come up with innovative ideas and things to be able to move people around in Johnston County to provide better opportunities for them. So, yeah, thank you.
What's the completion date on the building?
The contractor's saying September.
Okay.
I will say Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That's reality.
But it's nothing like it has been, right?
That's right. That's right.
Thank you very much.
Neil.
Thank
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on the budget? All right, looks like we've cleared the room on that. I would say I would reference Mr. Peterson's email from public comment as well, since it was primarily addressing our budget. So we would make that same consideration we made for Dr. Cohen's. All right, at this time I would close the public hearing, and also just like to make an announcement, we have two other public hearings on our budget. One is Monday, June the 13th at 6 o'clock in this room. And then we also have our anticipated budget adoption at our June 20th meeting, also at 6 o'clock in this room. So if you could make note of that. And next up on the agenda is a public hearing for the petition to abandon SR 2577. And I think our attorney will speak to that.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning.
You have been asked by North Carolina Department of Transportation and Eastfield Associates to do a closure of a road known as Service Road 2577. It's an unnamed road. This is contained wholly within the Eastfield Development project. It is also within the town of Selma, ETJ, and so we contacted the town of Selma, and they concur with the request. There's a resolution in your packet with regards to that, but the specific request is for a road closure. It's abandoned in a dead-end area, and it's very, very small. I think it's 800ths of.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if DOT, is there a difference in that nomenclature, abandoned or closing? Do they physically do something out there or just cease maintenance of it?
Cease maintenance.
Okay.
Yes. They take it out of the DOT system.
Is it revert then to ownership of the property owners?
It would, yes.
Okay.
They haven't done any maintenance on it in years.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any members in the audience that wish to speak? Please come forward. All right. And Madam Clerk, were there any emails to address this? All right, Board, I will look to you for a motion. Let me close the public hearing. All right, now I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we concur with the request and urge DOT to abandon or close.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have a proclamation for Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And I don't know if Mr. Sabatino is in the hall. If not, I'll call on Vice Chairman Harris.
Mr. Chairman, there is a proclamation for the board's consideration for Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And if it be permissible, I'd like to read that proclamation. All right. Proclamation for Elder Abuse Awareness Day, June 15th, 2022. Whereas Johnston County includes over 35,000 citizens aged 60 and older that deserve to live safely and with dignity and as independently as possible with the supports that they need. And whereas elder abuse is most often defined as any act that harms a senior or jeopardizes his or her health, safety, or welfare. Whereas Johnston County's older population is a vital, important part of the community that contributes to the social and cultural and education of future generations. And whereas identifying, reporting, and eliminating abuse, neglect, and exploitation of older persons is the community's responsibility. And whereas all citizens should watch for signs of physical abuse, withdrawal, depression, anxiety, fear, and living without necessities such as food, heat, air, and medicine to make it known to proper institutions. Now therefore, we, the Johnston County Board of Commissioners, does hereby proclaim June 15th, 2022 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Johnston County and encourages everyone to commit to protecting the safety and future of our older citizens. Adopted this 6th day of June 2022, and I'll enter that as a form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, if that's permissible.
Mr. Chairman, you know, the older members during our agenda review sort of joked about this because we are part of that population, but it's nothing to be joking about because we probably all know of situations in families and other circumstances where elderly are abused, either intentionally or non-intentionally, and we all need to be aware of that. So I'm glad that the board is supporting this actions by the DSS, and I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item up is a presentation by Go Triangle, commuter rail update.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us in today. Getting close to the end of the feasibility study that we're working on last 2 years at Go Triangle in partnership with Johnston County and Wake County and Durham. I'm here to give you an update. And I'm going to look a little bit to my right here because I don't have a paper copy of my presentation, which is good. I heard this spins. Okay. So
if you want to take this helps to take that. I can see the screen a lot easier than you can.
So I apologize for that. So right here, next slide, please. We have the corridor. So the corridor is about 43 miles when you include Johnston County. Originally, the study was phase one of the study, which took about a year, was West Durham to Garner. Taking the study further, when Johnston County showed an interest in participating in the study out to Clayton, takes it from a 37-mile corridor to about a 43-mile corridor. Pretty healthy corridor to study commuter rail. And you can see the limits here marked Clayton and West Durham with the orange lines. And you can see on the next slide our study partners. We're working with a large group of folks, Campo, DCHC, the MPOs, again, the counties, working with NCRR is a study partner with us, and so is NCDOT. We've enjoyed the relationship with them, and it's been going very well. We have monthly updates with our partners, and they've been a key part of the study as we moved it along. Next slide. Commuter rail would go in the existing NCR corridor, which NS runs freight trains on, and Amtrak has passenger trains on, so we'd be adding more trains into the single-track corridor, which is generally about a 200 wide foot corridor in most places, and it would be maximizing an asset that that is already existing in the state, and the state already has an interest in this asset. So it's natural that we look to this asset to maximize the transit feasibility in providing more transit for the region as it grows, especially Johnston County, because its growth is higher than the rest of the region, certainly, and it's the highest growing state county in the state. Where we are, what we're doing right now is we're looking at the stops, we're analyzing ridership, We're looking at what infrastructure needs there are, because there's only a single track. In most places, we'll have to double track. We'll have to add some sidings to get around some yards. It seems like a simple corridor when you drive around, but it is a very complex corridor when you have yards in Selma and East Durham, and the impacts of having extra trains in the corridor go even beyond the 43-mile corridor, something we had to account for. And we're working very closely with Norfolk Southern and their consultants. We paid Norfolk Southern money to do the capacity and modeling, and they come back to us, and they've shown us that their growth is not going to be huge over the next several years, but certainly they might run longer trains, and that also has an impact on how long your sidings have to be, so when trains have to go around. So we're getting a lot of information from Norfolk Southern. We're asking them to continue looking at some of these infrastructure costs that they're asking us to provide. The ridership is looking very good. We're looking at almost 12,000 people a day by 2040. We're also looking at housing and jobs and land use. That when you see the final study come out, we'll be back to talk to you about everything, which would be probably end of July, early August. But there's good impacts with commuter rail on all these areas with land use and jobs, more clustered growth, definitely the ability to get to work faster, more reliably, and that's all part of the study. We've done a lot of public engagement like we are doing here today, all throughout the study, and we talked to hundreds of people and done hundreds of meetings, like this, with stakeholder meetings and focus groups and surveys, and put up a special website called readyforrailnc.com. And even open up a study office in Durham, because there's a lot of interest there, a lot of impacts on Durham community when you add to that corridor, because the corridor gets very tight when you get into Durham. You don't have 200 feet of buildable corridor in Durham. You have maybe less than 75 or 80 feet. So it does take a lot of work to figure out the constructability, what construction barriers there are, and what the cost of those are. Next slide. Just as part of the study, again, we looked at some of the housing analysis. So there's a large, within a mile of the corridor either way. And when you talk about a 43-mile corridor, a mile either side is quite a stretch. And so 27% of the affordable housing now and planned is going to be in that corridor. Next slide. Looked at housing costs. Transportation and housing costs are some of the two biggest costs that any household has. So anytime you have over 45% of your cost of your family budget goes to transportation and housing, it's considered to be a stressed household. So adding all the counties the average is over 45%. Johnston County is the lowest of the three counties, but certainly it shows that anything you can do to improve transportation costs would help with the household income and the family budget. Next slide. So how do people get to work? Okay, these are 2018 numbers, pre-COVID, right? So we are going to have some forecast numbers coming out when we get the study done. But this is pre-COVID how people got to work. And you can see Johnston County has a largest share of workers that get up in the morning in Johnston County and leave the county and go to work. And some drive in, about 25,000 drive in, and it's about the same number, a little bit less, actually wake up in Johnston County and work in Johnston County. So Johnston County has some challenges, and all the counties have their own special challenges when it comes to getting people to work. But in Johnston County's case, and of course, as you know, the highway capacity does limit the ability of people to, probably most of these folks go west, to go west, but with 540 construction nearing completion, that's going to alleviate, I think, temporarily some of the issues, but certainly want to keep our eye on how people get to work. Next slide. Wake County is kind of a bi-directional, so the peak goes both ways. So it's a lot of people wake up in Wake County and they stay in Wake County, but a significant number drive out and significant number drive in, so it's a destination. Again, they would benefit from commuter rail in a much different way with a bi-directional peak. So I think folks would have a different interest in Wake County when it comes to commuter rail, but still a very viable way to move around the counties, around the region. Next slide. Durham. So Durham is the reverse of Johnston County. So more people drive into Durham every day than drive out. And so you can see that the vast majority of folks are driving in, and they're driving in from as far as Charlotte, from what we can see. But a lot of them are coming from the east, so it's a big challenge for them. So they need to get people in. So for them, as the highways become more congested, they need to find new ways to get people into to work so the employers can enjoy a workforce that will serve their needs. Next slide. So this is the slide that, for me, tells a very good story. So the red dots represent, one dot represents 50 jobs, and the green is the corridor. That's the corridor 1 mile either side. I think a lot of people understood this innately, that this is where the jobs are coming. Well, when you see it graphically, it does have quite an impact. So you see Durham all the way to the west, again with Johnston County having a huge job cluster developing in the east, and Raleigh, that spot between RTP and a little bit east of Raleigh is where a huge number of jobs are going to be located in the future. And then again, up and down the Route 1 corridor, where DOT is looking at building high-speed rail and some intercity rail service on a limited basis, certainly is going to enjoy a lot of job growth. And there'll be a lot of challenges. So this is the future, right? So the challenge is, how do we address getting people to jobs? Because it's very, very important. As some of the earlier speakers were talking about, and I heard mention folks walking to work in the rain, very dedicated to earning money for their families. So again, getting people to work and congestion is going to continue to grow on our highways as these jobs come in. Region's going to grow by about 750,000 people in the next 20, 30 years, but even more jobs are coming than people are coming. So 850,000 jobs or more are coming. So people will be driving in to get to these jobs that we expect to be developing here. And with the growth of population, they're going to bring cars. And we think as many as 700,000 cars are going to come in with the folks that are coming. Either people are born here or they're going to move here, but they're all probably going to have a lot of cars, so the congestion is definitely going to go way up. We'll go to the next slide. So talking about congestion and kind of refining what it looks like on the map here, you can see on this slide, with the 750,000 people coming between now and 2040, it is going to add so much traffic that, if you don't do anything to make traffic better, either add a lane, add transit service, or some other type of way to get folks to work with bus service, this is what the highways are going to look like in the region by 2040, and it's not pretty. So, I've been quoted before in the paper calling this the heart attack map. It certainly has a arterial kind of look to it. Certainly, this is not what you want to see, but what commuter rail does, and I think what extra bus service does, whatever you're planning in Johnston County, what I heard from the earlier speakers, and all the efforts of Wake County with their bus rapid transit and Durham County with expanding their bus service, that makes a dent in this. It doesn't cure it, but it makes a dent in it, and I think that's the goal. You're never going to reduce the vehicle miles traveled, but you can reduce the growth in vehicle miles traveled if you can plan around this and give people really good alternatives other than driving. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about BRT in the last slide. Bus rapid transit is something that's being planned for the region. Bus rapid transit is moving buses in primarily bus-only lanes so they can go around the traffic, or they come to a red light and they get maybe a 10-second jump on the rest of the traffic, and that gives them a little bit ahead. Certainly those types of treatments and that for bus or running bus on shoulder can improve your situation here. So here are some projects now that would happen, that are planned to happen between now and 2030. You can see one that actually goes out to Clayton. I'm not sure if that one is still on the books, but certainly there was I know Brett Martin was in here about Christmas time talking about bus rapid transit and the expansion of one of the projects out to Clayton. But here you can see Chapel Hill in the west has a small project out there. They're trying to get funding for it. They're ready to build it if they can get the money. Wake County has 5 projects. The Western BRT project is already underway. And if they can get the funds, they will build out the other 4 projects. And these are great opportunities to move a lot of people, but short distance. The BRT generally goes about 10 miles or less. And a lot of these segments here that you see, and they look like one long segment, but they're actually individual projects, and each of them are anywhere between 7 and 10 miles. that's a bus rapid transit customer. You're going kind of a short distance. Commuter rail customers can be going over 20 miles. So it's two different types of customers seeking two different types of transportation. And I think bus rapid transit adds a lot of value to the corridor, to the community. If we can get extra rapid bus service to Clayton, that would certainly help the problems that you know, getting people to work that you're going to experience by 2040. Next slide. Just to talk a little bit about stations, okay? So here's a couple of representations of stations, and here's a quarter mile around the Raleigh station. And then you could see that it's right next to, adjacent to, well, we would use Raleigh station for the commuter rail. We'd be on a separate platform. And then we have another development right next to Raleigh station, which is called Raleigh Union Station Bus Transfer Center. We just announced that. We're building it. It's a type of transit-oriented development where you have a 8-bay bus garage in the basement, and then you have a private developer overbuild on top. It is Hoffman and Associates. It's our development partner, and they're planning about a $250 million project on top of the bus station, which we received federal monies for. It's about a $40 million public investment that's bringing in about a $250 million private investment on top of it. So that's what TOD can do for you. But again, you can see that a quarter mile around the Raleigh station does cover a large part of the city. That makes it walkable and I think and accessible when if you're using commuter rail. The next slide, please.
Mr. Clark, could I interrupt you a minute?
Sure.
Are you aware, and I'm sure you are, that the News and Observer has reported that $157 million was spent to design rail between Durham and Orange County? And after spending $157 million, that project never got off the ground.
That's right.
And to quote the News and Observer, about an exchange between your organization and Orange County Commissioner Earl McKee. He says the exchange reflects the public mistrust that lingers around the Durham-Orange light rail project and the GO Triangle officials who guided it through 7 years of planning. The project was dropped in 2019 amidst state funding cuts and opposition from NC Railroad and Duke University. And there was a comment that after spending all that amount of money, $157 million in a dense, much denser population area than Johnston County, Commissioner McKee noted that Orange County could have spent a fraction of the wasted dollars on bus transportation. So I just find it hard to accept the credibility and reliability of your report for us here in Johnston County to spend money with that track record and with the fact that we don't have nearly the dense population that Orange and Durham County have.
So I would just like to say that I'm not here to sell you your commissioners commuter rail. I'm just here to tell you about, we were asked to do a feasibility study. And GO Triangle, as the regional transit agency, was asked by Durham County and Wake County, and then later on by Johnston County, to study what the feasibility is. And what you have here is over about 3 years, a $9 million investment. And the goal of this $9 million investment really is seeking to do a better job than was done for the Durham Orange Light Rail project. To talk about the cost, the barriers of partnership, like NCRR and NS, which are, without their cooperation, none of this can happen. And also to talk about how we fund it and come up with some scenarios. Tell you about how much service we can provide, who would use that service, and what impacts it might have for your housing and economic development. So when we deliver the final product to you, this county and the other counties, then it'll be up to you all as to whether or not you want to be part of moving into a project into development. It may be that this county may not want to, or one of the other counties may not want to, or none of the counties want to.
But don't you think that maybe it would be wise for you to go, or the light rail go, to the most fertile ground, whether that be Durham County, Cary, Raleigh, the airport, and see if you can get one project to work. And after, in the most fertile ground, you've been able to get a project to work and show that it's feasible, then maybe Johnston County on the outskirts
That's right.
would be reasonable to look at light rail.
And I don't disagree with that approach. And actually, the study will recommend or have demonstrate options for segmentation, which would be taking smaller segments of this project and building it with maybe more locally available funds, and then maybe later going back in for a big federal grant. But what we're doing here is we're giving you the whole picture for the whole corridor and what it would take to build it out all at once. Again, segmentation may be an option that folks want to look at. But right now, I think that decision will probably come sometime after we deliver to you the final study, and so you commissioners can take a look at it, so the public can take a look at it and talk about it and figure out, okay, is this for us? Is the smaller section more desirable? And it could be. Go Triangle will, we can contract the building, but we don't have the funding. It's the counties that have the funding. So without the counties saying, yes, we want to be in, or we want to be in a smaller project, then that's where Go Triangle would partner with the counties, whichever counties want to be part of it, and NCRR and NCDOT to build whatever that project is, whether it's a demonstration. And I think that's something that NCDOT is looking at right now for the S-Line project. They're looking at building a demonstration, perhaps from either Henderson or Wake Forest, north-south, running a couple of trains a couple times a day by 2030 to see what kind of ridership they can develop. And I don't disagree with that approach. I think it's certainly a viable option. But, I think what we were charged with studying is the whole scenario with a robust commuter schedule. 8 trains in the morning, 8 trains in the evening, and 2 in the midday and 2 in the evening. That's a very robust schedule to test the corridor, to see what it can handle. And I think if the idea is you want less, then certainly if we can prove the corridor can handle 40 trains a day, certainly then the conversation of doing 10 or 15 trains a day is a heck of a lot easier with NS and NCRR. Is that responsive to your?
Well, just to make sure you understand how I feel, we don't need any trains. It is not a feasible, realistic use of our taxpayers' funds to be looking at this in Johnston County at this time, because there is no model in the whole triangle for it being feasible.
So I think that if a community or a county wants to come in at a later phase, if there is a segmented project that's built out, and after that project is demonstrated, and if Johnston County in 2035 or 2040 says, boy, we really need something more, can we add on to what you've done? I think that is totally a feasible way to go, and maybe the preferred option for Johnston County, if that's the case. I do not think that this corridor, whether we build out the whole thing or a segment, is the end-all be-all. I think at some point, if this corridor is built out and it's successfully demonstrated they can do the service, then other communities such as Selma on the east end, Mebane on the west end are going to ask for service to be extended out to them. So I think this is for me, this is really kind of like phase one of building some type of commuter rail system in a corridor that already exists, where we don't need to buy a lot of property or move a lot of utilities, and have hopefully willing rail partners to work with. I think that this is this feasibility study will talk to that. And I think if we, again, it's just feasibility. We're not moving into development. And that's what happened with light rail. They moved it into development probably before it was time, before they had all their agreements in place, before they worked out things like insurance and liability with the railroads. Something we've already done to a large degree with NCRR and NS already for this project. But the light rail gave a lot of projects, a lot of experiences that hopefully lessons learned from those experiences and we won't duplicate the same problems that we had with the light rail. I wasn't here for light rail. I don't have a full grasp of everything that went good or bad about light rail, but I certainly, we want to make sure that we do as best job possible here before we spend any more money past this study, and whether the communities, whether Johnston County or Wake or Durham, want to participate. And I think that's the important thing here. And this is, for me, this feasibility study is a conversation starter, I think, for the commissioners in each of the counties to take a look at it and see if they want to, if this is something that they want, that they feel is a good solution for what they think is coming as far as development, congestion on the roadways. So certainly I agree with much of what you're saying. I think this is a multi-step process for all of us.
Yeah, I would just say, if rather than, I think there's a lot of discussion to go on this, and I understand, Commissioner Smith, your concerns, your valid concerns. So, Mr. Clark, if you want to finish your presentation.
So I'll just skip to the Clayton slide real quick here, and then we'll get to the end. So the Clayton slide doesn't have a circle around it. We don't know exactly where the station is going to be, so we couldn't make one, but certainly you can see that a lot of the area would be covered, and you have a lot of employers here, like Novo Nordisk, Caterpillar, that might enjoy getting either their employees into their area. I know they're further than walking distance to a train station, so certainly some kind of a rubber tire solution would have to be found to help people accomplish the last mile. Next slide. So in the best of all worlds, if everything is built out, this is what the world would look like by 2040. And this includes all the bus rapid transits, the commuter rail full build out on the orange line, the S line, which is represented in blue, that's the DOT project. They want to go from points north of Wake Forest down to Sanford. And that's a DOT project, but certainly complementary. Both projects would intersect and are complementary to each other. And the green lines are existing GO Triangle lines that would connect to some of these rail stations that they're built. And then the last slide in the presentation is really kind of the, what we just talked about, right? So we talked about process. So process is that you get to decide if the cost and benefits are acceptable, if the project would be advanced into environmental review, and this is the construction, this would be the earliest possible start, and the earliest possible service could be 2030. And I would say this is about right now in 2022 dollars, it's about a $2.1 billion project. And in Europe expenditure dollars, obviously there's going to be a higher cost range. Because right now inflation's trended about 8% for construction projects. So, but we don't have a final number on that yet. We will in a few weeks when we release the final draft. We thank Johnston County for being our partner in this study, and NCRR. I see Scott Saylor's here. He he used to be NCRR president, but he also works with the county now consulting for you. And I think that was really great. And he's been a vital part of our meetings, asking us a lot of tough questions. Rick has also been part of our meetings, and he asked us a bunch of tough questions too, and we certainly enjoyed the partnership. And whatever happens with the feasibility study, we will, we're happy to come back anytime and talk about what folks want to do or don't want to do. So that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Clark?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. And then,
thank you.
Mr. Saylor, did you have any comments? We appreciate your contributions to helping us guide us through this feasibility study. So,
Glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay. And I would just add that on the quasi-related note is the Campo has started the southeast area study, or the initial phases of that, so that'll be something coming up, and it will be interesting. This study will actually extend to just east of 95, and I think include Pine Level in it, so it will extend further into Johnston County than ever before, and at least one of us up here would like to see the county piggyback on that and get the rest of the county in so we can do a full comprehensive county update, but we'll save that for a later wish list that I'll share with the board. Next up on the next up on the agenda, we have our public utilities segment of the morning session. We have 5 items that
Mr. Chairman,
will direct.
let me make a suggestion.
Okay.
I wonder if we could just bundle all of Chandler's requests into one motion, make that motion, and pass it.
If it doesn't hurt anybody's feeling, I'm all for that. So I think that we can have discussion on individual ones if we need to, but I'm good with your.
I'm sure Ms. Farmer won't have any objection.
Well, for the sake of the general public, though, in conducting their business, just let it be known, but we have gone over all these projects in small group agenda reviews, and so we have looked at them very closely.
And they're
I
all
would support.
projects that were previously approved in the 2022 capital improvements plan.
Okay.
That being said, I make a motion, we approve all 5 of those.
I'll second it.
All right. Just for the record, I'm going to read off, just not the whole thing, but we have a Wilson Mills wastewater pump station upgrade, 4 Oaks wastewater pump station improvements, Neuse River wastewater pump station evaluation, the Dutchess Downs gravity sewer outfall, and Smithfield North Booster Pump Station improvements. So those are the 5 projects that we're making a motion to approve on. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Ms. Farmer. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. All right, let me flip back over here. Next up, we have Mr. Chad McLam, our Finance Director, to present the resolutions for 2022 General Obligation School Bond Referendum.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. We have staff requests. We have 2 resolutions we'd like for you to approve today. We're requesting 2 resolutions related to the November 8th, 2022 $177 million General Obligation School Bond Referendum. First resolution is introducing the official bond order, which describes the purpose and nature of the bond and acknowledges the filing of a sworn statement of debt and the statement of interest and public inspection with the clerk, and I'll do that now. And also a resolution calling for a public hearing on July 18th on the bond order. So we're requesting the adoption of these 2 resolutions. This will get the ball rolling for the November 8th bond referendum.
Any questions? I hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the resolutions.
Second.
There we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Stiff. Note that. Motion carries. All right, next up we have appointments. We have 2 boards that we have appointments for, and we have more applicants than we have positions to fill. So as become customary, we have ballots at each one of the commissioners' seats, and we will vote on those and tally them and announce them at our 6 o'clock meeting. And just for the public, they are the Economic Development Board has 1 position, and we have 3 applicants. And the Voluntary Agricultural District Advisory Board has 3 positions with 4 applicants. So we will vote on those and announce those at our 6 o'clock meeting. Next up, we have the Delinquent Tax Collection Report from Ms. Jocelyn Andrews. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the sake of time.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly, exactly. For the sake of time. Before you is the the June collection report for the month of April, showing where we stood at the end of the month. As you can see, we were up about a third of a percentage point over the same period last year. Basically, we got 30 days left to wrap up the collections for this fiscal year, and things are moving quickly, and we're excited to see where we're going to end up. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I've got a perhaps non-related, refresh my memory. Do we have online services, can a citizen look up what the tax rates are in all of our towns?
Yes. Yes, there is a tab I think it's called Tax Rates and Forms, and I believe it's the first link on that tab on the JCTO website, which of course you can get to from the county website also. You click on that and it shows all the fire districts, all the towns. I think I've seen it in the past.
When is it updated?
We update it after y'all pass the budget. And then also we have to wait for all the municipalities to give us what their tax rate is also. We try to do it by about the 5th of July.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have...
Ms. Andrews, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have had occasion in some other activities I've been involved in to look at other counties around us.
Yes, sir.
And I really appreciate what y'all do. Just the data that's available and how it's available, it works as good as any county I've
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And we've obviously had some suggestions in the past for improvement. We're always open for that. And we're also kind of self-assessing all the time to see what else we can do out there to help make it easier.
I got really frustrated at the adjoining county the other day. The data I needed to pull, it was, gosh, like pulling hen's teeth. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be glad to pass it along.
Yeah. Mr. Hester, your
Just have
report?
one thing today. Sheriff Bizzle asked if I would present a vehicle surplus item. It's a fairly new vehicle, but it was totaled in an accident. Asked the board to declare it surplus.
All right, I hear a motion to declare as a vehicle surplus.
So move.
Second. Now we have a motion to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have board report and comments. I'll start with Commissioner Braswell. Anything? Commissioner Godwin?
I was privileged to participate in our county's Memorial Day service last Monday, as well as local municipalities' Memorial Day service on Sunday afternoon. And I really appreciate what Commissioner Smith did at the beginning of our meeting. I thought this morning when I was walking my dog early about today was D-Day and what thousands of Americans were going through 78 years ago today. And I appreciate that comment.
Vice Chairman Harris?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, briefly, Mr. Chairman, you recall at last meeting, you appointed some representatives, Commissioner Godwin, Commissioner Harris, and myself to meet with the fire people in regard to the presentation they made last meeting. We did have that meeting. We're working on looking at some short-term funding in regard to the matrix. We don't have anything concrete, and we're also looking at long-term funding, and we don't have anything concrete at this point. But these are the things for fiscal year 22, 23. I don't see in any much necessity for general fund involvement in what the matrix. We're trying to find ways to fund it other ways, but more to come that will be presented to the commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens? Commissioner Smith, I do have one thing. Just wanted to announce that we have a special joint meeting with the town of Selma at 2 o'clock today at the Civic Center, which is at 300 North Webb Street. And the purpose of the meeting is to hold a public hearing on a proposed economic development incentive grant. So we will be there at 2 today. If there's no other comments, I hear a motion to go into closed session.
Yes, sir. I would move that the board go into closed session for purposes of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, to discuss matters relating to the location, expansion of industries or other businesses in the area pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4, to establish or instruct staff concerning the negotiation of the price and terms of a contract concerning the acquisition of real property pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A5, and for the purpose of personnel pursuit to NCGS 143-318-11A6, and we're using all of GSA 318-11.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to go into closed session, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Board will now move into closed session.